UFC 322 goes down this Saturday, and let's get to what I always start out these videos with. Is it worth $80? In this rare instance, I'll actually say probably. I mean, it is the Madison Square Garden card, and the UFC always tries to stack the MSG card along with International Fight Week in the summer. So this is one of the two big cards that they shoot for, and they load it up, and this one's no different. So while I rarely do think that cards are actually worth $80, and Lord only knows the last one certainly was not, even in the because sometimes these cards, they don't look like they're worth $80, but then the product ends up being really good. Last card was neither. This card you hope will end up being that. We'll start out with the first fight of the night. You've got Beneil Dariush going up against Benoit Saint Denis. Saint Denis is riding a 2-fight win streak, but it's a little padded because the one fight was against the late fill-in, and Benoit Saint Denis needed a win, and that's exactly what it was a get-right fight. But he followed that up with a really, really good win against Mauricio Rufy, one of the fighting nerds, the hottest gym in MMA, the guys that looked like they were invincible until they ran into stiffer competition as of late. But on the flip side, you've got Beneil Dariush, who ends up coming in, and he's really only lost to the best of the best in this division. He's lost to Arman, he's lost to Charles, and that's it. He ended up coming back and getting a big win against Renato Moicano, a guy that ended up putting Benoit Saint Denis to the woodshed. I think Benoit Saint Denis is a really good fighter. I think he was rushed a little bit, and we saw that in the fight against Dustin, in the fight against Moicano, and I think this is another chance for him to get into contention for the title, because at one point he looked like an absolute world beater. Unfortunately, I think Beneil Dariush has been there and done that, and I think he's too veteran laden. He's seen guys like Benoit Saint Denis, and I think he's going to eke out a decision victory in this. Look, I mean, Benoit Saint Denis did improve, and I was impressed with the Mauricio Rufy fight. I didn't think he would end up winning that fight, but he did, and he proved that it wasn't necessarily a fluke, his hot start. He might have just run into stiff competition. I mean, Dustin Poirier is one of the best to ever fight in lightweight, but Beneil Dariush looked like for a long time he was poised to get a title shot. He was the next guy in line. And, bad luck happened, a loss here, a loss there. And this is another fight where these two guys can possibly get back into possible with a good performance, number one contendership. I personally like Beneil Dariush, and that is just based on level of competition and experience in the cage. But would it shock me if Benoit Saint Denis came out and showed another level to his game? No, because he hasn't been fighting for all that long. So every time you see him, and I hate to quote Joe Rogan on this, because anytime there's a young fighter, Joe Rogan lives to tell you, he's just getting better. But in this situation, he might just be getting better. He might be leveling up. And it's not like, Beneil Dariush is getting younger, albeit the guy does look like he's 45 years old. He's not. He's a really good fighter. I like Beneil Dariush in this one, so I will take him. That's not a confident pick, but I'll take Beneil Dariush. All right, next up with the main card, you have Leon Edwards taking on Carlos Prates. And this is another fighting nerd, a guy who was one of those people I talked about, looked like a world beater with this gym, the Fighting Nerds, until he ran into Ian Machado Gary. And Ian Machado Gary exposed Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates has dynamite in his hands. I mean, he will put you to sleep, and he has done it time and time again. I mean, I remember the Neil Magny fight where it's like, I had bet Neil Magny just get out of the first round, and Carlos Prates was not having that. But this is also a guy that loves to smoke cigarettes in, the post-fight interviews. I mean, I just question the seriousness, I guess, of his dedication to the sport. I don't know. There's something that rubs me the wrong way of the guy that's knocking everybody out in round one. Then he's expected, and then he follows it up with smoking heaters, having to go in there against a stiff competition, against Leon Edwards, a former champion, a guy who's used to going 5 rounds. I don't like that matchup for Carlos Prates. With that said, Leon Edwards needs a win. He had a flat performance against the former champion Belal Muhammad. And I think everybody chalked it up to like, look, it might just have been that. Everybody has a bad day at the office. That might have been Leon's. But then he follows it up with a really, really bad performance against Sean Brady, which he ended up getting tapped out in the fourth round. He looked like he was never in that fight. And you just start to wonder, have the best days of Leon Edwards passed him by? It's not like he's all that young, and Carlos Prates is younger. So you just wonder, is he still in love with it? With all of that said, I think anytime Carlos Prates ends up going into the deeper waters, and by deeper waters, I mean, I don't know, halfway through a fight, he looks a little bit gassed. Whereas Leon Edwards, as I said, he's been there, done that. It's kind of like the first fight. I'm taking the fight experience with this one. I'm taking Leon Edwards. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting fight in the world. And I could definitely see Carlos Prates putting it on Leon Edwards in the first round, but then the experience pulls Leon away in rounds 2 and 3, and he wins a decision in this one. So it's kind of like that. I said the first fight. Like, would I be surprised if Carlos Prates wins? No, this is not going to be one of my locks of the night. But I'm going to go with the experience, and I'm going to go with the guy that has he's probably welcoming, honestly, a 3-round fight as opposed to the 5-round fights that he's fighting. Keep in mind, though, because he's been fighting 5 rounds, will the urgency be there? I think it will. I think he knows he needs to get into the win column again in order to get back into title contention, because you don't want to be riding a 3-fight losing streak. It's understandable to lose the belt to Belal Muhammad. It's understandable to lose to Sean Brady because he's one of the best welterweights in the world. Yeah, that's not going to look good if you lose to Carlos Prates, because at that point, I think your chances of getting back to a title shot are cooked. So I'll take Leon Edwards in this one. Not a barn burner, but I like him. Next fight on the card, we have Sean Brady, the guy we just talked about, going up against Michael Morales, who is 18-0. And you got to figure this is, in fact, a number 1 contender shot. Now, Michael Morales has slowly made his way through the UFC welterweight division. Max Griffin, Jake Matthews, Neil Magny, the ultimate gatekeeper to prove whether or not you're a contender or you're a fraud. And then Gilbert Burns. When you knock out Gilbert Burns, and not only do you knock him out, but you knock him out in round 1, that is seriously, seriously impressive. Whereas Sean Brady has only lost 1 fight in his UFC career, and that was to a former champion of Belal Muhammad. Unfortunately for Sean Brady, it was like the only fight where Belal Muhammad actually finished somebody, so he's got that on his resume. But ever since then, Sean Brady has been on the warpath, and I'll just look it up real quick. Sorry about that. Kevin Gastelum finished him. Gilbert Burns, unanimous decision, and then Leon Edwards. So he finishes a former champion, a former title challenger in Gilbert Burns, and then he ends up going the distance. Michael Morales is the hot name. Sean Brady's stand-up has gotten better, but reality is we all know what his game is, and it's wrestling, and it's wrestling mixed with a very impressive gas tank, and that is Sean Brady's complete game in this one. As I go back to the page, sorry about that. Hit thumbs down for that. I was not prepared. It's like 2 a.m. I got back from a hockey game late, and I was like, shit, I got to do this video. So I was not prepared. Hit thumbs down for that. But I think the game plan is very simple. You don't want to stand and trade with Michael Morales. Michael Morales will put you to sleep. He has done it. And to do it to Gilbert Burns in round 1 is wild. You know, that's the guy that puts people's lights out, not gets his lights put out. So I think Sean Brady's game plan with this one is simple. He's going to clinch. He's going to wrestle. He's going to out-tire you. He's going to wear on you, and he's going to use his gas tank, and he's going to end up getting a decision victory. And with that, he will firmly be cemented as the next guy to get a title shot at welterweight. Selfishly, I hope this happens because, you know, I'm a Philly guy, and Sean Brady's from Philly. But I think the Belal Muhammad fight was a little bit of a wake-up call. What I'm worried about in this one is ego gets in the way, pride gets in the way. You know a guy has been knocking everybody out. I just hope he doesn't sit there and stand with them and trade with them. I hope he sticks to his game plan, and I think he will. I think he'll be a disciplined fighter. If there's one thing about Philly fighters, I feel like they're disciplined. They just suck on a mic. I wish to God these fight all of them, respectfully. Sean Brady, Joe Pyfer, Pat Sabatini, Dawkins. all of them are just brutal on a mic when they win. They need to like go to school for it to learn how to trash talk and not be so humble. But with that, the trade-off is they usually stick to their game plan. They usually don't get too in their head and think, okay, well, I got to prove something here. No, they just go about their business and get the win. So, I think Sean Brady takes this one. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I like Brady in this one. All right, next up on the card, we have the co-main event of the night. Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Wei Li. This is supposed to be the super fight. Now, I just keep going back to, like, just give me the super fight at women that I want, which is Amanda versus Valentina. The fight that we got once, and I needed it 5 rounds. The 2 best women to ever step foot in the octagon are Valentina and Amanda. Give me that. Nothing against Zhang Wei Li. She's fine. But, you know, and she's going up in weight to take this fight. To me, though, it's just not the fight I want, and they're going to hype it up. Until I see it from Valentina, I'm picking Valentina. And by it, I mean, until I see her get completely outclassed, I get it. You know, she ran into Alexa Grasso, and she made a mistake, and she got her neck wrapped up. And you know what she did? She did exactly what Amanda did when she lost her belt. She went out there the next fight and whooped her ass and proved, yeah, that was a fluke. Because she can. I mean, there's 2 women I've ever seen in my life take a fight the distance just because they wanted to go the distance. That is batshit insane. They're like, yeah, I got bored of like finishing people in round 1 and 2. I just wanted to prove that I could, you know, go 5 rounds. So I toyed with this opponent. I toyed with Felicia Spencer for 5 rounds. I just felt like it. Wildness. And that's why I'm taking Valentina in this one. It's not like Zhang Wei Li isn't a very formidable opponent. She is one of the best. I just think Valentina is the best. And until I see Amanda come back, I think the queen of women's MMA is Valentina Shevchenko. I don't think that changes. I think it stays Valentina Shevchenko. All right, let's move on to the main event of the night. Jack Della Maddalena taking on Islam Makhachev. Another super fight that I don't really want. You know, and it's funny because anytime I hear, and I might do a separate video of this, anytime I hear, like, Dana White gets so upset about, like, the statements UFC has a superstar problem, I think about fights like this. The UFC encouraging Islam to move up in weight to take a quote-unquote super fight against JDM that, again, I don't think many people are begging for. Okay, I'll give you that. Like, Islam is the best light heavyweight in the world, and he absolutely would take out a lot of guys. I don't see anybody at light heavyweight that would give him much of a fight. Most of the time, guys are going up or down 10 pounds. He's going up 15 pounds. I think he's going to be completely undersized, and what's impressive to me was JDM's approach against Bilal Muhammad, who has a very wrestling-heavy game plan, and he was able to stuff a lot of his takedowns. And that's Bilal Muhammad, who usually fights at 170, not 155. I just think that JDM's going to be too big, and he is going to, I don't want to say big brother him, because I do think that Islam is going to be able to take a round or 2. But I think at the end of the day, I think he's just too big. I think the size difference is going to show in this one, and I think it's going to benefit JDM. If JDM didn't have any takedown defense, okay, I might be able to give it Islam Makhachev in this one. But I think this is kind of a forced super fight. I think after this, you're going to see Islam go back down, reclaim his belt that he never lost. He just gave it up. And, you know, JDM goes about his business actually fighting guys at 170 that aren't, you know, smaller people than him, and, you know, fighting the Sean Bradys of the world. So that's what I got. Let's go through it real quick again. I have Beneil Dariush, Leon Edwards, Sean Brady, Valentina, and JDM. As I said, this card is really, really good. That is the main event. That's the main card. That's the $80 card. But the entire card is really stacked. I mean, the main prelim is Bo Nickel coming back. I can't believe it. He made it back less than a year after losing. I am shocked. But he's in a get right situation in this one. And by the way, thank God the UFC took him off the main card. Thank God. I am Bo Nickeled out. I am sick of hearing Bo Nickel, seeing Bo Nickel. I am praying to God that Bo Nickel loses this one. I don't think he will. Rodolfo Vieira is his opponent. I think Bo Nickel is going to get right in this one. I think he gets back in the win column, but I still don't think that he is a premier guy in the division. He talks a big game. He talks about becoming the champion and moving up and defending the belts and blah, 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 blah. The guy fights once every 6-7 months. I think we saw what happened in the last fight when, he fought a true contender in the division. A contender, by the way, that ironically in his last fight, he quit. I think Bo Nickel got fraud checked. I don't think it was a mistake. I don't think it was an accident. I think he quit out there. He got humbled. Probably hasn't learned from it. In this instance, though, I do think he gets right. I do think he wins, and then we won't see him again for 7 months. No matter how quick it is. That's the most annoying thing about Bo Nickel. He's insufferable. And I have no I have no problem telling you I can't stand him at this point, but I think he wins. A lot of Philly guys on the card, by the way. Pat Sabatini, Kyle Dawkins are also on the card. But let's go through them real quick, as I clearly am cheating. Roman Coppola versus G-Rod, Greg Rodriguez. Love Greg Rodriguez. Love him. Any guy that literally has a hole in his head where you see tendons and he still is able to finish a fight, it's hard for me to pick against that guy. Roman Coppola is really good, but I'd take G-Rod any day. Then you've got Aaron Blanchfield coming against Tracy Cortez. I'll take Blanchfield. I think she's a future contender, but she's just young. But I will take Aaron Blanchfield in that one. Malcolm Wellmaker making his return. I mean, if you want to lock what Malcolm Wellmaker by knockout. I mean, this guy's been knocking everybody out, and I think that the value there will probably be a total guess like minus 145. But I think you'll be able to make money on it before it gets to the point where you're not going to be able to. But he's just been murking everybody. So Malcolm Wellmaker, there's a lock of the night. Gerald Meerschaert taking on Kyle Dawkins. I really like Kyle Dawkins, and his last fight was really impressive. I mean, this is a guy that locks everybody up via Darce. He goes out there and starches his opponent late, and he was a late add to that card. Now he gets a real big test, though, in JM3. Gerald Meerschaert has been there, done that, fought the best of the best. He's kind of the quasi Neil Magny-ish, like one of those like gatekeepers to kind of prove if you're a fraud or not. I just need to see more from Kyle Dawkins. So until I see more of him at this level to see what's happened since he got released the first time, he got released, went back to CFFC. He's only come up for one fight. It was a very quick finish. I just simply need to see more before I start picking him against a Gerald Meerschaert. And I only am picking based on experience. I would love to see Kyle Dawkins go out there and murk Gerald Meerschaert. But Gerald Meerschaert's game is really good on the ground, and that's kind of Kyle Dawkins' game. So then it becomes a stand-up fight. If it becomes a stand-up fight, maybe it does benefit Dawkins because, him and his brother did train together, and his brother had definitely had hands. We'll see. I lean towards Gerald Meerschaert, but I don't feel good about that one. Angela Hill fights, as I said, Pat Sabatini's on this card, which always love Pat Sabatini. Another Philly guy who I think doesn't get enough credit, but I'll take Pat Sabatini. Yeah, look, really good card. Definitely worth $80. Hopefully, Now's the part of the video where I actually got to subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. That's cool. You can think that sucks. I do need subscribers though, so if you could subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to go. I got Cheesecake Factory, so I'm gonna go eat cheesecake. They're small now, by the way. I don't like that at all. All right, I'm gonna go 7-2. That's all that matters. Bears are 7-2 after a thrilling Monday Night Football game that saw them win 10-7. What an ugly fucking game. That was a hideous game. That is the ugliest game I have seen since the Joe Webb game of, I think, 2008, if you remember that one. It was a rare Tuesday night game because of a snowstorm. But that was hideous. It was a really good game. It was a really good time for the Eagles to play on Monday Night Football with the YouTube TV situation going on with Disney, where YouTube TV people didn't have access to the game. Because if there was one game where I go, okay, that's the game you probably want to skip, boy, was it that one. Yeah, like, The Eagles don't score a touchdown. Neither team scored a touchdown until the fourth quarter. Eagles ended up scoring one on a beautiful deep throw by Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith, who is incredible at pinpointing the ball. Like, his ability to just time it perfectly, unmatched. And then the defense came through when it counted. But we have to talk about the elephant in the room, because I feel like I've taken a lot of shit before with saying that Nick Sirianni is not a good coach. Nick Sirianni won a contest. Nick Sirianni is an offensive-minded coach that every time he touches the offense, it's bad. And I get reminded constantly, he won a Super Bowl. What are you talking about? I can't believe it. Nick Sirianni made the dumbest play call I think I've ever seen. Ever. Like, Nick Sirianni single-handedly tried to rip a defeat out of the jaws of victory when the Eagles had a chance to basically put the game away. It's 10-7. Ball's on like 40-ish yard line. You set up a situation where you have three options, obviously. You either go for it on 4th and 8, I believe. You kick a field goal, which would have been about a probably 58-ish, 60-yard field goal. Not that Jake Elliott's never made those before. He's usually money with the long ones. Or you punt. You punt and you pin the Packers in a situation where, you know, they're probably 10 yards. They got 90 yards in like, I don't know, 30-ish seconds or whatever it was. And Nick Sirianni, in the infinite wisdom, when everybody and their mother goes, you kick a field goal. Kick a field goal, you're up by 6 at that point. You're forcing Green Bay to go down the field. They have to score a touchdown. They have to do it. He goes, no. No, I know better. I know better than everybody else. 4th and 8, we got that. Dials up a pass. Genius move. And of course it doesn't work. So now Nick Sirianni has put all the onus on the guy that won this game, Vic Fangio. Because if it wasn't for Vic Fangio's defense, the Eagles would not be 7-2. The Eagles would be 6-3. Vic Fangio showed up tonight. Nick Sirianni did not. I'm wondering what the hell this team did during the bye week. Because not only do you have the bye week, but you have the extra day because of the Monday night game, and that is what we saw. Now, I will remind everybody, they're 7-2. That is the most important thing. I don't think we're ever going to see the Eagles perform like they did tonight. I don't think we're seeing that for the rest of the season. That was an anomaly. I don't think we're going to see as dumb of a play call as Nick Sirianni had tonight to go for it on 4th and 8 instead of kicking a field goal and making it a 6-point game. I don't think we're ever going to see that again tonight. And yet they won. And that is the good sign of a good team. When you can find ways to win games despite your ineptitude. It's like talent wins out. That is the sign of a good football team. And that is exactly what happened. Here are the facts that you need to focus on if you're looking for the positivity out of this game. The Eagles came into the game. They're on the road. They're playing in a hostile environment in Lambeau. They have a makeshift offensive line at this point. You're going into the game with Brett Toth at center. Horrendously bad. If you follow this account, you know, not exactly the president of the Brett Toth fan club. I never want to see the guy again. But he apparently is their best depth. Thank God that Willie Lampkin was his practice window was activated from IR. But he's not ready. So Brett Toth gets to start at center. Then you see Lane Johnson go out. And here's my problem. Like, everybody will point to Kevin Patullo and go, like, Kevin Patullo, fire Kevin Patullo. And I'm not dying on that hill at this point. I wouldn't have any problem if they moved on from Kevin Patullo. They're not going to, though. Because the Eagles are 7-2. They're not going to move on from Kevin Patullo. They're going to keep him. What I am sick of is now Kevin Patullo is the second in-house OC that has been promoted to OC that somehow has taken the offense and done what with it? Nothing. Brian Johnson being the first. That, though, as I've pointed out a few times, Nick Sirianni was meddling. It's why I think that he might be meddling now. I don't know. But the Eagles probably do need a guy with... They basically need the offensive Vic Fangio. They need an old-school OC who has the cachet that Nick Sirianni won't overrule on dumb situations like, yeah, we're going to go for it on 4th and 8. But they can also recognize the talent on this team and get the offense going. The first drive that the Eagles had this game was great. They were moving the ball well. It was one of those long, sustained Eagles drives that we got accustomed to last season where they would kill the opposing defense and then they would end it with a score. Whether it be a field goal or a touchdown, they knew it would score. And unfortunately, in this situation, Jalen Hurts ended up fumbling. And after that, it was just a 3/4 of punts. But they looked good, and that was the scripted, first 15 plays or whatever. And then since that, it's been a disaster. But to bring it back, Lane Johnson goes out in this game. Now you've got a right side of Tyler Steen and God, who went it? I guess Fred Johnson. And Fred Johnson's not bad, mind you, but still, it's not Lane Johnson. It's Fred Johnson. So you've got a backup and a right guard as a starter who's not very good. And one of the first plays you do is, we're going to run to that side of the ball. You got Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata on the other side. We don't run to that side. No, we're running to the side with the weak point. Genius. That is dumb play calling. The Eagles won this game strictly from a talent standpoint and because their defense coordinator has a fucking clue what he's doing. And other than that, the OC and the head coach tried very hard to lose this game, and it didn't work. And that you need to focus on. The fact that they tried, and yet the Eagles are still 7-2. Because while a lot of people will act like tomorrow, tonight, whatever, they'll act like the Eagles lost this game because it was such a frustrating game to watch. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly. There was a lot of holes in it. They're going to act like they lost the game. They didn't lose the game. Like, could you imagine how bad it would have been had they lost that game and they looked like that, but they didn't. Lot of bad, not much good. The only positive you can take out of this game is the fact that they won. And that, again, is the most important thing. I'll reiterate, I don't think that we're going to see a performance like that. I don't think we're going to see a bad coaching decision like we saw tonight. The Eagles end up winning. You move on. Okay, fine. But I would just love to see once this season where you have an entire offensive line healthy. Because I have to keep reminding myself that the Eagles' offense is struggling. It looks like the New York game was maybe a one-off. And it was against a bad Giants team. But the Eagles' offense is struggling. But they're doing so because they have not had 1 week where their offensive line is healthy. And I'll remind you, week 1, you had Landon Dickerson coming off of a surgery. And ever since then, it has been something's been hobbling off. Someone's been just straight up out. Backups are in. And that's tough to overcome. And they're finding ways to overcome it. So hopefully everybody will be healthy for the playoffs. But the important thing is they're 7-2. The division is pretty close to, I feel like, being locked up at this point because the division is just garbage. Dallas buying at the deadline, hilarious. The Commanders have been injured all season long, and then, the Giants just fired their head coach. So the important, as Jalen Hurts would say, keep the main thing the main thing. They won the game, great. Doesn't mean you can't improve. It was an ugly performance. Wasn't what anyone wanted to see, but they won. All right, subscribe, please. Subscribing is cool. I'd appreciate it if you could do that. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. That's cool. You can tell me what the most frustrating part about this game was in the comment section. And let me know who your MVP was. Mine was Vic Fangio because the defense showed up. But who would you have? All right, go Birds. The Philadelphia 76ers are a really good basketball team, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. They improved to 7-4 on Tuesday night after defeating the Boston Celtics 102-100. Another win against the Boston Celtics team that, they have been struggling. They're 5-7 on the season. They don't have Jason Tatum. But then again, the Sixers counter without Joel Embiid. So it's kind of like, all right, you don't have your best player. We probably don't have ours. And yet the Sixers still end up coming out on top. And the reason why I say that this is a really good basketball team is let's just take a look at it. Joel Embiid has played in 6 games this season. He has scored more points than minutes played in half of those games. He has shown that, once again, he is him, he is the dude, in half of the games that he's played. Now, again, it's the same Joel Embiid problem where his knee flared up. It's the reason that kept him out of tonight's game because I'm recording this on a Tuesday. So is Joel Embiid ever going to be a 35, 40-minute-a-game type player? I kind of doubt it at this point. But when he's on, he's on. And my concern with Joel Embiid is just the fact that, is he ever going to be able to get into game shape with the constant minutes restriction, the injuries, all of that? It's like they're dealing with Mr. Glass at this point in his career. They're so terrified of playing him so much and getting him injured because the problem has always been with the Sixers. Joel Embiid is their best player, and when they get to the postseason, it just something goes wrong, whether it be a lingering injury from the regular season or he just gets injured in the playoffs. You're going to need him in the playoffs, but it is November, so I'm not panicking about Joel Embiid's injury situation yet. Call me foolish on that one, that's fine. But the difference between this season's Sixers team and last season's Sixers team isn't just the fact that they're only dealing really with an injury to Joel Embiid at this point. It's the fact that they really, I feel like, have a full team. A full team. They've lost 4 games, 2 of which Joel Embiid hasn't played in. So half the games that Joel Embiid has played in, he's, once again, I'll remind you, scored more points than minutes played. Then half the games that the Sixers have lost, he just hasn't appeared in, which previously, if Joel Embiid doesn't appear in a game, you just go, all right, that's an automatic loss. You know, the Cleveland game is a good example of that. You knew that they were going to be, it was a back-to-back. They have to travel from Chicago to Cleveland, and they're going to be without Joel Embiid. Okay, yeah, chalk that up to a loss. And I believe Darius Garland returned for the Cavs that night, so that was like a scheduled loss, to quote Doc Rivers. But we have now seen games where Tyrese Maxey's obviously taken over. Like, he is shown to be the tried and true scorer on this team. His development is incredible. But we've also seen games where Adem Bona has kind of saved them. Tonight's game, you know, Justin Edwards, an undrafted free agent, ends up putting up 22 points and I think 20 minutes played off the bench, becoming a key member, lighting the team on fire and leading them to a victory. We've seen VJ Edgecombe drop 35 in a debut. It's not just a one-man team at this point, which it has been previously, where if Joel Embiid was out or if Joel Embiid simply was off, they're not winning. They weren't good enough to win. Now you're seeing a situation where not only is Joel Embiid out, Paul George is out, and they're still packing the wins and stacking the wins on one on top of the other. This is a really, really good basketball team. And I know a lot of people, and I'll talk about this in another video, I know a lot of people are down on the Paul George situation. They're not getting worse when he returns. Like, they're getting key contributions from Kelly Oubre Jr., from VJ Edgecombe. Obviously, talk about Tyrese Maxey, but it's also their bench guys, the Quentin Grimes of the world. Again, it's the Justin Edwards tonight, the Adem Bonas. Like, they're getting key contributions every night from somebody. And it just goes back to the reason why I truly believe that last season was going to be one step back to take 5 steps forward. Because last season was an absolute shit show, but you were able to get a view of a Justin Edwards, where you go, okay, he can be a rotational guy. You're not usually getting a view of Justin Edwards in a season where you're looking to contend. And what I mean by that is you're not looking to get a view of a player that is an undrafted rookie free agent. But because of all the injuries and because they were such a shit show, sure, kid, get out there. And Nick Nurse is so good at that. He's so good at identifying talent, building them up, and identifying when a guy is going to be able to contribute for his team. He did it in Toronto. I've talked about that a few times, you know. Kyle Lowry wasn't Kyle Lowry until he got to Toronto, until he really blossomed in Toronto. You know, Fred VanVleet was an undrafted free agent who ends up getting a max deal from the Rockets. Pascal Siakam was a late first-round pick who ends up blossoming into a key player. Nick Nurse did that time and time again, and I think he's in the process of doing it with this Sixers team, where when you finally do get Paul George back, because everybody just thinks that Paul George is a scrub at this point. He's not. When you finally get him back and get him healthy and include him in this rotation, whether it be a starter or coming off the bench, because Kelly Oubre Jr. is playing really, really good basketball. I don't necessarily know how you take him out of the starting lineup. But when you include him, the team's only going to get better. I think that this team is going to be a top 3 team in the East. And last season I had a tweet, horrible tweet, probably late November, I want to say, that said, the Sixers will be a top 4 team in the East. Book it. Hey, I was a year off. But this current Sixers team, the way that they're winning games is different than in years past because of the contributions they're getting from other players that you necessarily wouldn't rely on. But they're getting it. It's no longer Joel Embiid and kind of everybody else. It's not Donna Summers and the Supremes. It is everybody. It is the Beatles. It is Paul, Ringo, George. There's a John guy in there somewhere. Because while, yeah, you can pretty much pencil in Tyrese Maxey for a cool 25 points a night at this point. You know, he's been great. You need those other guys. You need a cohesive unit. You need the bench pieces. You need somebody to step up, and they're certainly getting it. This is a really, really fun team to watch. I just don't think anyone notices it because a lot of fans have Sixers apathy at this point. They've seen this team struggle. They've seen this team fail to get out of the second round time and time again. They've gotten their hopes up only to get kicked in the nuts. I understand it, but I think you're also missing out on a really, really fun season ahead of us, barring injuries. And that's the tough part is at this point, I feel like Sixers fans are waiting for that shoe to drop. They're waiting for the injury bug to hit, and it hit in a big way last year. You know, you forget that not only was it Joel Embiid, it was Paul George, it was Tyrese Maxey at a point. It was all your key contributors, and that forced you to have to play some of these younger guys. But it also gave you an eye on a Justin Edwards to identify he could be a future rotational piece, and he is. The suckiness of last year got you VJ Edgecombe, where even when he's not pouring in buckets, he's giving you high energy on the defensive side of the ball. Tonight's game, they won 102-100. You know, that's like an old school basketball game. But they've also won games 130-120. This team is doing it in so many different ways that they're going to continue to stack these wins up. And I feel like by February, we're all going to look around and go, wow, I didn't even notice, but like the Sixers are like second in the East, like third in the East. And the East is actually really good at this point. You know, I mean, they did lose to a really, really good Detroit Pistons team who, after all those lottery picks, they're finally showing the talent. Obviously, Cleveland is really good, but it's no longer the Milwaukee's and the Bostons. You've just changed a couple teams, but those are the teams that you're going to look at and go, okay, I can't wait for that matchup. And while I say it's no longer the Boston is still one of those teams that is veteran-driven, that has been there before and done that. So when you do beat a Boston, it does feel really good. And they're also, I want to point out, winning games where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to win in the past. And an example of that is the first game against Boston, where they're on the road, Joel Embiid's playing horrible, they have to come from behind by like 12 points, and they do it. On the road, in the Boston Garden, they come back, they win that game. That is not something you're accustomed to as a Sixers fan. They've done it a few times, coming from behind and winning the games. Now, yeah, they blew a game they should have won in Chicago, and that's going to happen. But again, the way that this Sixers team is winning, it's a lot of fun to watch. You really need to jump on the bandwagon this season because it's going to be fun. Now's the part where I ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. Subscribing is cool. Everybody's doing it. Peer pressure. Everybody. Like your mom's like, you really should subscribe. And you're like, all right, that never happened. Actually, hit thumbs down for that. That was horrible. It was a horrible pitch by me. Trash. I still would beg you to subscribe, though. If you are so inclined, you could hit thumbs up. That's fine. There is a thumbs down button. Smash that. But let me know what you think about the Sixers team. Are you jumping on the bandwagon yet, or are you still waiting to kind of see? As I said, it's not going to get worse when Paul George gets back. It can only improve. Go Sixers. What would it take for you to stop watching a sports league? I think we have reached the point where all these big leagues are Teflon. They are scandal-proof. The reason why I'm saying that is we don't have just one. We don't have just two. We have three different organizations, three different leagues, the best of the best, dealing with a gambling scandal. You have the UFC dealing with one, you've got Major League Baseball dealing with one, and then you've got the NBA dealing with one. And does anybody care? Nope. Is viewership down? Nope. So what would it take? This video isn't to encourage you to stop watching the UFC or to stop watching baseball or to stop watching the NBA. I think that we all recognize that with legalized sports gambling, it's going to happen. These guys are going to get approached, especially MMA, because they are wildly underpaid. And this isn't the first betting scandal that has plagued the UFC. They've dealt with it before. But it's amazing to me that there's three separate sports currently dealing with it at the same time. And yet, you don't sit there and go, sanctity of the sport, that's it, I'm done, I can't trust it. And people will joke about the NFL script, which I think is ridiculous. There is no script. The idea that it's scripted, it's like, okay, yeah, it's scripted. You still have to make the plays. You know, you still have to air it out. It's crazy to me. Like, you watch the sport in real time. You watch the throws made, the windows that these quarterbacks are fitting the ball into, and people still think, oh, that was scripted. Do you have a situation where refereeing at times is a little suspect, sure. Okay. But right now you sit there and you've got 3 dealing with it and nobody cares. So what would it take? And by the way, I didn't even mention the most corrupt sport, and that's soccer. There's probably some league right now dealing with a betting scandal with soccer because that's just usually the case. And again, nobody cares. I think about the big scandals that have hit sports, and probably the biggest is the 1919 Black Sox. But that was 1919, you know? And that wasn't a death nail for baseball. It was a death nail for the White Sox, who lost 8 of their players, who were one of the best team to ever play. Sure, it was a black mark on them, pardon the pun. But when you think about what hurt baseball, it was the strike. So the only thing that can really hurt these sports is people going away. Like the sport itself ceasing to operate for whatever reason. Whether it be a lockout, whether it be a player's strike, that is it. I've seen it happen to the NHL. The NHL goes away, and then, by the way, I can't think of one betting scandal they've had, but the NHL goes away in the early 2000s. They come back. They're on Versus. I'm sorry, they're on OLN. They have the worst TV deal imaginable. They have to claw their way out of a year without hockey. And at that point, people had checked out because hockey was kind of a niche sport. And it still is a niche sport. I mean, and hockey fans hate hearing that, but the casual sports watcher is watching, you know, the casual sports watcher only has enough bandwidth to deal with sports. That's not their life. So if they only have so much bandwidth to deal with sports, they're watching the Eagles, they might be watching the Phillies, they might be watching, and it's like one of them has to go, okay, Flyers go. So that hurt hockey. And then hockey had another half season lost. But hockey's fine now. I mean, hockey's doing better than ever with their TV deal with ESPN. Okay, so what else do you have? Well, the WWE is scripted, so that won't be hurt by a betting scandal. The UFC just signed a $1 billion deal with Paramount. Any of that trickling down to the fighters? No, and that's why they have a betting scandal, which is criminal. Baseball, it's pretty clear that the cartel hit up some of these players and got into their heads about betting and throwing this and throwing, and, you know. But, like, the NBA had the Tim Dunaghy situation. Baseball has this now. Baseball had the steroid era. Steroid era brought baseball back from the 95 strike, which is crazy. Cheating brought it back. Sports is Teflon. There is nothing that sports can do to have you or me or anybody check out. We'll all sit there and watch games religiously. And shit, I'll still bet on the games. And it doesn't matter about the corruption of it, because sports betting has become a $1 billion industry. I'm sorry, sports betting become a $1 trillion industry. You can't turn on ESPN without seeing some guy talk about the betting lines. You know, they had the ESPN bet, now they signed with something else, DraftKings maybe. You can't go anywhere. Everybody will tell you about the lines. Everybody's become a gambling expert. So that just adds another wrinkle into why sports is Teflon. Because even though you might sit there and you might go, this is corrupt. Like, I'm watching a guy clearly throw a fight. And that's kind of what happened in the UFC situation. You'll still sit there and bet the next fight. Because selfishly you go, well, I can win money. There's nothing that these sports can do. And I don't think enough people are talking about it. I think that sports is so ingrained in us as a society, as a fan, where you go, it's not my identity, but it kind of is my identity. And I'll tell you right now, for me it is. Like, I dedicated my life to talking about sports. I knew I wanted to go into sports as a career, and I did it, and it's great and all that. I don't know who I would be if I didn't have the Phillies and the Sixers. And I mean, I think we all have run into that dude at a party who just loves bragging about the fact that he doesn't watch sports. He sucks, right? Like, I don't know what we would do if one of these leagues was crippled. And the thing is, it's never going to be crippled. And that's my point of this video. So tell me, is there anything that could happen where you, as the viewer, go, I am done? Because we'll joke about it. We'll say we're done, you know, and then you're right back at it the next week. You're right back at it the next season. You know, the frustration, it subsides. You got nothing better to do. You dedicated your whole life to this one particular team. All right, well, let's give it another year, right? What's that? That's not going to hurt, other than my mental health. So what is it, if anything? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think there is anything. I think they're scandal proof. We have seen athletes murder other people. We've seen rampant drug use. We've seen betting scandals. We've seen games thrown. We've seen tournaments thrown. I don't think a lot of people realize the NIT at one point was the premier college basketball tournament. Why is it the secondary tournament? Because they had a betting scandal. And because the NCAA tournament wasn't corrupt. And all of a sudden, people started trusting that. And the NIT went to second. You know, we've seen it. We've seen different kinds of situations. And we keep coming back for more. Every single time. All right, now's the part where I ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash the thumbs down button if you don't. It's like, I'm genuinely curious, though. Is there anything that could be done where you go, I'm done. I'm done. I'll read more. I'll go out hiking. I'll watch other sports, but I'm not watching this particular league, this particular sport. I'm done. I can't do it. I'll watch another league. It might not be as good, but I'll watch another league. All right, I'm gonna go now. Go Birds!